In this video, you will learn how to apply addition and subtraction of integers to real-life scenarios. So to begin, we're going to start with temperature. So example 1, we are told that the temperature at 9 a.m. was negative 12 degrees Fahrenheit. And at 10 a.m. was negative 3 degrees Fahrenheit. What was the increase in temperature? So for this one, whenever you're trying to figure out the change in something, we start with the ending number, so where you ended up. So we start with a negative 3. We subtract that by the starting number, so that would be negative 12. So we take negative 3 minus the negative 12. And so when you subtract a negative, that makes a plus, so it's the same thing as adding the opposite. So we have negative 3 plus 12, which would be a positive 9. So that would be a 9-degree increase. And by the way, it's positive because when we have different signs, we have to subtract 12 minus 3 to get 9. And it's positive because the 12 has a greater absolute value than the 3. All right, so 12 is bigger and it's positive, so our answer would remain a positive number. So another example with temperature. Here we are told that the temperature started at 12 degrees Fahrenheit and decreased 20 degrees. And the question is, what is the new temperature? So we started at 12, and then decrease means subtract. So we're subtracting 20 from 12. So this problem would be solved by taking 12 minus 20. So here, if it's helpful, you can think of this as an addition problem, 12 plus negative 20. So either way, we have different signs, right? Positive 12, negative 20. We had that over here too, positive 12, negative 20. And when the signs are different, we subtract. So we take 20 minus 12 to get 8, and 20 is bigger than 12, and 20 was negative, so we keep our sign as a negative. So our solution would be negative 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is temperature examples. Next, we're going to look at some sports examples. So for this example, we're dealing with golf. And it says that Ryan's golf score was 3 under par after the 8th hole. He shot 2 over par on the 9th hole. And the question is, what is Ryan's net score? Now, there may be some of you watching this that may not understand what par means. So quickly we'll explain par for those who don't understand. So when you're golfing, each hole has a predetermined number given to it. And that number is the number of hits it's supposed to take to get into that hole. So for a shorter hole, it'd be par 3, meaning it should take 3 hits to get the ball in to the hole. All right, par 4 means it should take 4 hits to get the ball in the hole. Par 5, it takes 5 hits, etc. So typically it's par 3, 4, or 5 for most holes. Sometimes maybe a par 2. But anyway, so if it's 3 under par, that means it's good. So we hit it in the hole in fewer hits than they said it should take. All right, so 3 under par, that'd be a negative 3 when you're dealing with this problem. And then on the 9th hole, he shot 2 over par, which is not good. All right, you want to get at par or less than par. But 2 over par would make it a positive 2. All right, so 3 under par is negative 3. 2 over par is positive 2. And to figure out his net score, so his overall score, we just put these together, negative 3 plus 2. So negative 3 plus 2, the signs are different. We would subtract 3 minus 2 to get 1, and keep the sign negative because 3 is bigger than 2, and 3 was negative. So the net score is negative 1, or in other words, we can say that is 1 below par. So we would say he's 1 below par, which is good. Okay, another sports example. This one is dealing with football. So a football team gained 10 yards on the 2nd down, but lost 15 yards on the 3rd down. What was their total gain or loss? So if they gained 10 yards, that's a positive 10. And when they lost 15 yards, that's a negative 15. All right, so you put it together, 10 plus negative 15, or 10 minus 15, same thing. That's going to give you the total, in this case, is going to be a loss. So here we have a positive 10, negative 15. So the signs are different, which means we subtract 15 minus 10 to get 5. And it's going to be negative because 15 is bigger than 10, and 15 was negative. So our answer would be a negative 5. So the total loss would be negative 5 yards. Okay, the next type of example is dealing with altitude. So altitude is the height of something. All right, so here, example 5, says a hiker started at 400 feet above sea level and hiked to a location that was 200 feet below sea level. And the question is, what was his increase or decrease in altitude? So if it's 400 feet above sea level, above is going to be positive. So positive 400. And then 200 feet below sea level, that's going to be a negative number. It's a negative 200. So to figure out his change in altitude, we must subtract. So we subtract where he ended up, which was the negative 200. So we take that number and subtract it by where he started, which was a positive 400. So we take negative 200 minus 400 to get our solution. So here both numbers are negative, which means we have to add the 2 and 400 to get 600, and then keep the sign at a negative. So our solution would be a negative 600 feet. So that was his decrease in altitude. So he decreased in altitude by 600 feet. Now lastly, we have an example with money. So for this example, Junior was $8,000 in debt. Within the year, he was able to pay off his debt and save an additional $5,000 in his checking account. What was his net increase? So if he's $8,000 in debt, that means he owes money, which would be a negative balance. That is a negative amount of money. So that would be a negative $8,000. Now, when he was able to save $5,000, that is a positive number. It's a positive 5,000. So to figure out his change in income or change in money, okay, we take where he ended up, which was the 5,000, and we have to subtract it from where he started. So we subtract that by a negative 8,000. So we have 5,000 minus negative 8,000. And the answer to this will be the answer to our question. So when you subtract a negative number, that is the same thing as adding the opposite. So that becomes a plus. So what we have is 5,000 plus 8,000, which would be 13,000. So his increase in money was $13,000. So these are just a few different types of examples that you might run across in real life. And you will see different types of problems in real life than just these that are listed here in the lesson. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how to set up different types of problems. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.